I'm Jessica Anne Pressler, and you've tuned into Your Traitor Within, a podcast that exposes the brutal truths of healing, self-discovery, and breaking free from relentless patterns of self-sabotage. Today on Your Traitor Within podcast, I am joined by Marci Hopkins, a powerhouse in the world of media and mental health, and someone who knows firsthand what it means to break free from cycles of pain and step into clarity. Marci is an award-winning TV host, author, podcast creator, and motivational speaker. You might know her from Wake Up with Marci, her inspiring talk show that earned multiple Telly and Atham awards. But recently, Marci made the bold decision to leave TV behind and focus on a deeper conversations through her podcast, where she now speaks directly to women about healing, motherhood, mental health, and transformation. She's an author of Chaos to Clarity, Seeing the Signs and Breaking the Cycles, an award-winning memoir that details her journey through addiction, recovery, and self-love. And with over 9 years of sobriety, she's become a beacon of hope for so many. Marci is also a survivor of sexual abuse, a devout mother, and a fierce believer that it's never too late to choose yourself. Today, she's here to share her traitor within, that voice of shame and self-doubt that once kept her small, and how she finally reclaimed her power and her joy. Marci, welcome. I am honored to have you here, and I want to thank you ahead of time for your vulnerability and your willingness to share your traitor within story.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. I'm so grateful that I've been connected to you and I get to be here with you.
I feel the same about you. It is really a blessing. You offer so much to so many people, and each and every podcast, your podcast, Wake Up with Marci, is an inspiration to many, as well as knowledge. And I always believe that knowledge is our superpower. So
Yeah,
today,
100%.
so today you are willing, thank you, to come here and tell your Traitor Within story. As
Hmm.
we've spoken about, the traitor within is a part of us that usually is formed in childhood, but formed out of trauma. That maybe as a child we use our traitor within was helpful. It helped us cope with not feeling safe or coped with other issues that may have been going on in our childhood, but trauma can occur at any time. And then we use those coping mechanisms in our adult life, but it doesn't work for us in our adult life. So instead of helping
Right.
us cope, it
Right.
actually sabotages. So thank you again for telling your story.
Absolutely. That victim mentality. It doesn't work when we get older.
So explain what that means.
So when I was young, I was absolutely a victim, right? But as I got older and in relationships in adulthood, I still felt like the victim. I never felt that I played a role in any wrongdoing for the most part, even though deep inside I knew I did, but I was always feeling that I was being wronged. And I always made uh, myself the victim in a situation, and I was the one in pain, and the other person was the one that was putting that pain on me, when in reality, the pain was always inside of me. And I played a very large role in the reasons things weren't working out well in relationships, because we always have a part
Mhm.
in what we're in our relationships, right or wrong.
Mhm. And what was that part? Where did it come from? Why did you do that? Where did you get the victim mentality?
Yeah, so listen, it started very, very young for me. My mother had me at a very young age. I was an accident. I believe today I'm not an accident, but at the time it was hard because I was shuffled around. My mother was just turned 19. It was 1969, so she was in the midst of finding herself and having a lot of fun and living the hippie life.
Mm.
And thankfully, I did have my grandparents and my aunts and uncles, even though they were very young when I was born. Um, I just felt even though I didn't really understand it, I always felt that I was, I guess, not even I don't know what other word to use, but a, a nuisance is what I feel. That's the word that comes to mind for some reason, like with my mother, like that I wasn't really wanted. And about 6 years old, I was beaten by one of her boyfriends, and I ultimately ended up living with my grandparents. And I'll never forget feeling that abandonment when I felt like my mother chose a man in a party life over me. I lived with my grandparents for about 6 years, 7 years, and I'm grateful for that time because that was when I felt safe and there was a lot of, morals and values that were instilled in me by my grandmother, even though there was a lot of disruption in the home with my grandfather's anger. I believe my grandfather was bipolar. But then when I was 12 years old, my mother remarried. And I thought this gentleman would be our knight in shining armor. And about 6 months in to moving back in with my mother and thinking that, I was going to have this fairy tale family, the sexual abuse began. And so, as you can see or hear, a lot of my life, I was a victim. I was a victim of pain induced on me because of the inability for adults to take care of me and keep me safe. And I I started using alcohol to cope because that's what I saw. My mother was an alcoholic. She died at about 5 years ago from her addiction, but it was a lifelong battle with her and very difficult. But I just I didn't know any other way. I mean, even when I was, 8 years old, she would offer me alcohol. If there was, I had a stomach ache, here, try this. So I believe there's a lot of learned behaviors within that. Like if you see adults drinking all the time or using drugs or whatever they're doing, I mean, we're absorbing that as children. And
Yeah.
we start to believe that that's the way you are supposed to act, right? I mean, we're almost like we're being programmed. That's what we're being programmed.
Yes.
And then when the abuse happened and I didn't know any other way, it's just like, oh, well, I'll start drinking and I tried that and I forgot about what would the troubles in my life and it was an escape.
Hmm.
And so with that and some negative cycles in my life, I remained a victim, and that's where that victim mentality came from.
Hmm. And it's understandable
Hmm.
because as a child, you were a victim. How could you possibly have, you
Hmm.
were a child. How could you have been anything other
Yeah,
than a victim? But yes, I can understand that you
right.
go into adult where you can make some choices and changes and not see things the
Yeah,
same way. That's where you could, again, not see everything as being a victim, but also um, you have control. But maybe you didn't feel you had any other way of um, doing things differently. So when,
yeah. I mean, it's like it just reacting and making someone else feel bad about it, so I didn't have to feel that I did anything wrong. Yeah.
okay, that makes sense. So what
Hmm.
was your aha moment? What was the moment where you said, this is not boding me
It
well?
really, it really wasn't until I got sober, which October 4th, 2015 is when I made the decision to get sober. And so it
Mhm.
wasn't until my 40s that I started making
Mhm.
these changes.
Mhm.
And this is something we carry with us. And I had real difficulty in relationships because I would get involved, I'd fall in love fast, and I felt like I always needed to be in a relationship because I was too afraid to be alone. I
Mhm.
needed validation, always validation from someone else. And if somebody else would fall in love with me and I would get to be with that person, whether it was good or bad, most times not good,
Mhm.
it I just didn't have to be alone.
Mhm.
And so when I got sober and I started going to the 12-step program and I started working those steps, it forced me to do some things that I never had to do before. And I'd been in therapy for lots of years of my life.
Mhm.
But what it forced me to do was take the inventory, right? So who wronged me,
Mhm.
right? And then how did I also wrong others? And then it's through this process that you start seeing those cycles, those bad habits, those negative things that you're doing. Because unless we do any work on ourselves,
Mhm.
you're going to continue the same pattern over and over and over.
That's right.
And yeah, so I started to slowly start seeing like what I was doing, what I was bringing to the table, how I was being hurtful in
Mhm.
that relationship, in past relationships. And while it was my existing relationship that I was working so hard on, I was also bringing up the past in my past relationships and understanding those cycles. And I would have like these aha moments where I would blame the other person for everything, the demise of our relationship.
Mhm.
And then I'd be like, wow, I finally get it. Like, I get what I was doing too. And
Mhm.
maybe if I hadn't been doing those things, possibly it might have worked out differently.
Mhm.
Right. But it's an anything that I now do, like even if I do react in a negative way, I can step back today and
Mhm.
say, wow, why am I acting that way? What's really at the root of
Mhm.
this?
So you have an
And
insight you didn't have before. You couldn't have with the
100%.
alcohol because the alcohol
And there
kept.
was no insight at all. I mean, the only thing I did was cover it with the alcohol. That
Right.
was the only answer. Hmm.
That's all you knew. That's your
Hmm.
messaging and modeling from childhood.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
how brave of you to stop drinking, face all the hurt and pain, and then own things, own
Yeah.
your part. That's very. I commend you.
Thank you. I mean, listen, it's hard to face the pain if for
Mhm.
anyone out there. And
Mhm.
maybe it's not alcohol for you, maybe it's something else. But feeling the feelings is the hardest thing you can do. And it's the bravest thing you can do. Because once you start breaking down the barriers, breaking down the walls, getting raw with yourself, and really going within, that's when you really, the magic happens and you start connecting with yourself and you start loving yourself, you start forgiving yourself, dropping from the shame and the guilt. And there's, while it sucks while you're going through it,
Mhm.
there's so much beauty on the other side of it.
Right. Right. And that's what people have to believe, has
Yeah.
to trust that that is
Yeah.
there at the end. So what would you say to someone though that comes to you and they start to do the work and they get scared, so they take
Yeah.
steps back? What would you say to them?
You're human. Be kind to yourself, give yourself grace. We all take steps backwards, but it's just making the being aware of that
Mhm.
and realizing that every day is a new day and you can
Mhm.
always start over.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, well,
And so you are growing since then, right? It starts the growth. Um,
yes.
I know that people have said, and I'm not saying this is you, but I know people have said that many times when someone is has an addiction, they
Yeah.
it stunts their growth. That you
Oh, God, 100%.
so now you're. I mean, I would think is it scary at all, or is it just wonderful to be able to be now growing up?
Listen, there's so much fear because I am facing all kinds of things now that I
Mm,
would have never embarked on in my life. And
mhm,
nor did I think that I had the capability of doing it.
mhm.
I used to stay pretty damn small.
Mm,
Even though I will say I marvel at how far I went in my work. I mean, I've always worked in media. I always had a strength and a drive to move forward. Like that was always really important to me. And I'm sure that that came from that survival, that I didn't want to be like my mom. I was going to make something of myself. Um, and so I did that. Oh, and also I moved all of the time. So
Mhm.
change was very familiar to me.
Mhm.
Change was not scary. It's
Mhm.
not scary for me.
Mhm.
But just to give you a small example, I did feel, even, let's say I was director of on air promotions for FX networks. I had
Mhm.
built myself up in LA and had this role. I couldn't even speak in a conference room
Mhm.
without feeling like my heart was dropping, my armpits were sweating, and I was shaking to death.
Mm.
I was
Wow.
so fearful that I'm not smart enough to be here. I'm not smart enough. That imposter syndrome. And plus, I mean, I was drinking every night, so I didn't have the clear head. Um, I think to myself, like, God, I wonder what I would have done with my career had I not been drinking. But I I didn't have the confidence, and I had very low self-esteem.
Mhm.
And now I'm on stages talking, TV show, I'm doing all the things, putting myself out there.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm afraid. I'm afraid, but also like I trust my mission. I trust that I went through what I went through to be able to do what I'm doing today.
Mhm.
Everyone has their own path. Everyone has their own mission. It could be, maybe there's something you went through that's really, really difficult, and you've started sharing your story, and maybe it's to help uh, on a smaller scale. But there's so much growth within that, and that growth through all these difficult times has given me the strength that I have today to face the fear that I do face,
Mhm.
and in multiple occasions. I just know how to face it in a different way.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah. And with that, you have blossomed. I mean, look at all that you're doing. You're talking about another book now, and your podcast delves deep. You're completely
Hmm.
another level, right, than what you were doing before.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, that wasn't easy, right? So I have an established TV show.
Mhm.
I put so much into that. It was 7 years of my life that I put into that.
Mhm.
And now that I'm thinking, and then I'm like, and I never thought about doing a podcast, but life was changing. I was I was at a different stage in my life. I was going to be moving to Florida for a certain amount of time. There were other things I wanted to invest my time into. I kind of wanted to like take the show on the road, be able to reach more people. And also, like, when you're on TV, you have only very short limited time with your guest.
Mhm.
So this gave me the opportunity to dive deeper and
Mhm.
expand more on the important conversations to help people and create change. So I thought about this for a long time. It wasn't like an overnight decision, but it was like that final push.
Mhm.
Like, okay, you're going to be moving to Florida January 24th,
Mhm.
2025. Okay, maybe now is the right time to make this decision.
Mhm.
Right? So we don't want to be like reactive to things. We don't want to prolong things too much either. But, sometimes we can jump too quickly into something because, and believe me, I've been here or been there where you're like, oh, that didn't work out the way that I wanted to. Oh, that didn't happen as quick as I wanted it to. Oh, I'm too, really, the bottom line is that fear. A lot of times we won't move forward because of the fear. But if you give it a little time and you really listen to your intuition and pray to your higher power and you look for the signs, you'll know what's right, the right move for yourself, in whatever it is. And that's what I had to do.
And you had to trust it. You had to trust the way that you
Mm,
felt.
100% you got to trust it. And if you don't feel wholeheartedly that you're trusting that decision, um, then maybe it's not the right time or the right one.
Hmm. Right, right.
Hmm.
So, has there been times where your trader within has tried to poke her little hole, her little face out and try to, or has it been buried pretty well?
That little girl inside of me that was the victim, does she come out much? Um, well, today I'm almost 10 years sober. And
Wow.
so I know when that traitor's coming up, and I know how to manage it much better now, meaning it may only surface for a couple of minutes, and I know how to detect what's happening at that time.
Mhm.
Whereas where before, it may happen it happened more frequently, or it would take more time because it's all a learning process. We're all having, you're reprogramming your brain, the neuroplasticity, and, changing the way that it your whole brain is working,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so just recently, uh, I had a real difficult time with my grandmother passing. There was a difficult time with one of my family members.
Mhm.
And I mean, like, hate came from the inside of me out.
Mhm.
And I was like, for 2 days, this
Mhm.
hate. And I walked away from it and I'm like, what was that? What, right? Like, that's some real unprocessed emotions that I had with this person in my family, and about my grandmother passing, and that fear and sadness that I was coping with that, right? So I was able to, thankfully today, I was able to like step back, and there was a part of me like, I'm severing this relationship. I'm over it. I'm never going to let this person hurt me again. But I was able to step back and I was able to look at it, and I was able to confront that person inside of me that was the victim and had so much hate and rage and anger and inability to cope,
Mhm.
and say, what are we really looking at here?
Mhm.
Do you really want to sever this relationship? And no, I didn't. But I had to identify where that pain was, where that anger was coming from. And there was pain there from this person. There was pain. And it was almost like it was like a regurgitation of it. Like it was just like letting that anger rear its ugly head for that few days. And then we were able to process that, maybe not talk through it as much as I would have liked to have, because I'm a real talker. I'd like to talk about why you feeling that way. Why am I feeling this way? Like that's how I am today. Not everyone is that way. Um, and we were able to get to a place where we both apologized to one another. And I feel like those walls have come down because of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was work for both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it did. I'm not saying that all's healed and nothing's ever, it's never going to happen again, or it's all resolved. But I think that we were able to get to a place where we can be better in our relationship.
You can coexist.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I like that you were able to step a little bit away from the emotion and give
Hmm.
yourself the time to get a little more cognitive, I guess, where you could say, okay, this is what's going on. Let's try to figure out, and I assume that if this other person wasn't willing to speak, maybe things would have turned out differently, but you were able to come to some sort of resolution, whatever.
Right. Right. So it's this person doesn't they're not too far in their healing
Hmm.
from their past.
Right.
There's a lot of pain and hurt from that person's past that they have not confronted.
Mhm.
And so we are at different
Mhm.
phases, I guess, of our healing, our healing. But we were able to, like I said, come to a common place, a common ground, and just recognize, like, hey, we love each other. Let's let this pass. And we're going through a difficult time. Um, with this person dying that we love in our lives.
And I
Mhm.
know as a hospice social worker that when we were grieving, we
Mhm.
can be at our worst ever,
Yeah.
meaning things of all kinds of emotions, all
Oh,
kinds.
yeah.
And
And it was when that hate came up that I thought my grandmother was going to die. So I was not
right.
in the right place in my mind because that's why I had to look at myself like, what is happening? Like, I haven't been this person in so long.
Mhm. Also, and I don't know about this, but I know with many people, even when we heal, we move away from situations, we get away from our family,
Yeah.
and then we go home for Christmas, let's just say, and
Yeah. Triggers.
yeah, we all get triggered. We revert back to our child. It does happen to the best of us, even the most, even when feel we've healed and it's hard. It's just, and to be aware, like you talked about that, to be aware of what's happening is very important.
Yeah. And it is a version of insanity.
Yes, because it keeps happening. Right.
Same thing over and over again,
Again. No.
expecting a different outcome, and there's not.
Well, because you can't, you're doing the healing, but not everyone else is at the same place, as you pointed out. So we can't expect that person to be where you are. So
Hmm.
also
Hmm.
an understanding of that. We
Yeah.
can't change or control anyone else, but we only can work on ourselves.
That's what we need to realize. Like, we can't control anyone else. We can't control an outcome of anything.
Oh,
We can't expect anyone else to make us feel good,
correct.
right? Like, can't make somebody else like be our happiness. We got to be our own happiness, and then like let someone help us shine more, right? Like, I don't know.
No, but you're absolutely correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Thank you for sharing that. So if you would talk to your younger self, what would
mhm.
you tell her?
I am so sorry, honey. No.
You have compassion for her.
Yeah, like I just I get asked this question, right? I mean, this question gets asked. Like,
Hmm.
what would you say? And there's different stages.
Hmm.
But I always go back to my 12-year-old self that was full of dreams,
Hmm.
and that sexual abuse started, and I lost that girl. I lost who I was. And it brings tears to my eyes because I just recently did that inner child work to help to reconnect with my 12-year-old self. I had done it with my 6-year-old self, but I didn't even think about it. I hadn't done it with my 12-year-old self.
Hmm.
But that you're going to have to go through some real difficult times. And you're going to have to show a lot of strength.
Hmm.
And you're going to feel broken. You're going to feel guilt. You're going to feel sadness, a lot of sadness.
Hmm.
But there's going to be a reason that you're going through all of this. And you're going to get stronger. You're going to get healthier. You're going to find so much love for yourself. And you're going to find so many people that actually love you too, because you are lovable as much as you think is you that you're not. You are not just the outside of yourself. And that's all I used to think I was. And you are so worthy of happiness, joy, fulfillment, and love. And you will have all of those things.
Hmm. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Is there anything you would like to add before we close today?
I just want to say no matter where you are on your journey, you're never too late.
Mm.
You're never alone. Don't stay stuck in your secrets and your pain. It's when we start sharing, when we start acknowledging that we need the help, that's where the healing begins. And you do have people around you that love you, that want to help you. You have to make the decision for yourself to do it. And you are worthy and you are capable. And just remember you're not alone and you don't have to do it alone. And there's so much beauty on the other side of the healing, even though it's difficult. But there's so much love. We are all made at the source of love. And it starts with ourselves. So don't go outside of yourself. Find it within first. I'm not saying it's easy, but you can do it.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.